Coaches, before we hop into this episode, I wanted to remind you that the early bird price of $127 for the summer coaching series ends May 9th. Then the price goes up to $147. Practical ideas shouldn't be difficult to find and apply in your coaching. That's why we're putting together the first annual summer coaching series. The SCS includes 10 weekly virtual presentations, plus 2 bonus sessions with coaches and experts from across sports. These presentations are going to help you grow as a coach by giving you practical ideas that you can apply in your coaching and ultimately help you develop better teams and players and make a greater impact. When you sign up for the SCS, you'll get access to the live presentations and Q&As, the video replays, a private podcast feed with audio-only replays, detailed coaching notes on each session, and more. We've got an incredible lineup of guests that you can check out at summercoachingseries.com. And we're offering a 100% money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied with the value of the SCS within the first 2 weeks. You can learn more about the speakers, topics, and presentation times, and/or sign up at summercoachingseries.com. That's summercoachingseries.com. Welcome to the Cutting Edge Coaching Podcast, where we believe coaches are some of the most important teachers and leaders in the world, and they deserve to be supported. I'm your host, Luke Gromer, and every week we're bringing you conversations with coaches, experts, and leaders from across sports that will help you get better at teaching and leading so that you can develop high-performing teams and high-character people. Coaches, welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Dan Abrahams. Dan is a sports psychologist working alongside individuals, teams, coaches, and organizations globally. He is known for his passion to demystify sports psychology and for creating simple-to-use performance techniques. He is the author of 4 best-selling sports psychology books and is the founder of both the Dan Abrahams Soccer Academy and the Sports Psych Show podcast. A former professional golfer, Dan has a first-class honors degree in psychology and a master's degree in sports psychology. In part 2 of our conversation, we talk about creating a mastery climate, helping athletes find their ideal performance state or game face, and being solution-focused in our coaching. If you enjoyed the episode and want to grab a copy of the free podcast notes, just go to cuttingedgecoach.com/podcast or click the link in the show details to download a free PDF of notes from this episode or any episode of the podcast. And the notes from last week's episode and this week's episode are actually a free preview of the kind of notes you're going to get for every presentation in the summer coaching series. They're a special edition of notes that you're going to want to check out. You can go to cuttingedgecoach.com/podcast to grab the notes or summercoachingseries.com to learn more or sign up for the SCS. Now to part 2 of my conversation with sports psychologist Dan Abrahams. Enjoy the episode. I'd love to know a little bit more. You talked about an ego climate versus a mastery climate. Will you talk more about the important coaching behaviors that we engage in if we really want to create a mastery climate?
Yeah, I would probably lean back more towards autonomy supportive coaching. I would lean towards the capacity for the coach to help players engage by getting them involved, standing back, empowering players to be involved, to make decisions, empowering them to have the opportunity to make decisions. So you can set tasks with rules, but then you can offer them choice in terms of where they might go with that, options, different ways to engage in an activity or play the activity, different rules, giving them the opportunity to formulate how they think they can improve. And that, for me, if we're stripping this back to coach behavior, coach feedback can be aligned together. It's for a coach to stand back, ask questions, prompt, suggest, offer choice, listen, reinforce, suggest, stand back, allow the players important points probably between reps to huddle, to communicate together. And I think for the coach, it's a good friend of mine, Dr. Ed Corlin, who's one of the world's leading skill acquisition coaches, talks about telling himself to shut up 3 times when he really wants to say something. It's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. Don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Because you probably, not all the time, there's going to be some flex here, of course. And context matters, of course. But from a coach behavior and feedback perspective, give your players a platform, potentially give your players a platform, the opportunity to communicate, to brainstorm, to find solution. That doesn't mean that you can't directly instruct. It doesn't mean you can't use your expertise. It doesn't mean that there's times, maybe whole sessions, where you're not going to, where you're not going to engage in a lot of direct instruction. You might have a whole session where you are constantly directly instructing. And that might be at older age groups. It might be when you're trying to get across your principles of play, your game models. Of course, that exists. There has to be flexibility, but there's a raft of, probably a number of continuums of coaching behaviors. And I think it's about, again, coming back to this each session is a mini exploration. It's a mini experiment. It's engaging in as many of these behaviors as you can on an appropriate level to help your players retain motivation by helping them feel that they have the autonomy to be involved, helping them feel competent, helping them, and competence requires stretch tasks, getting them to help themselves to create stretch tasks, but not so stretched that it makes them feel incompetent. Getting them collaboratively working together. So I feel I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think this comes under the rubric of coach behavior. I see a coach as an expert guide. Again, I want to emphasize it does not mean you don't use your expertise. And it doesn't mean there might be not just activities and sessions, there might be weeks where you're really, really, doing a lot of talking, a lot of instructing. That's okay. But it's just asking yourself, why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Questioning yourself. What am I doing? How am I doing it? Why am I doing it this way? And then I think you can find what feel like the most appropriate behaviors, but there's always a question mark. You're never going to perfect it. And there's also a question mark at what are the best sessions? Are they the ones that seem like everything comes off brilliantly, or are they the most chaotic? Are they the ones where the errors happen? And that's okay. That's part of an autonomy supportive environment. That's part of a collaborative environment, is actually maybe a coach experiencing vulnerability and actually possibly expressing vulnerability. That's okay. That's all right. So I think that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, I love that, especially what you shared there at the end, just the importance. It's okay if it's messy and chaotic, and you even have to admit that you made mistakes and weren't at your best. I think that goes a long way in creating that environment where we're focused on learning and growth here, and we recognize that it's this process. One of the other things I'm really curious to get your insight and expertise on, Dan, is how as coaches can we help our athletes, or maybe create an environment where our athletes are getting into that ideal performance state? And I know that that's kind of broad, and maybe it's their ideal performance state for practice and or games. Maybe it's different. I'm just really curious to know your thoughts on that, how we can make sure our athletes are in that ideal performance state, maybe even what is the ideal performance state, and then how we help them get there.
Well, this is my favorite topic.
Good.
Because you use the term ideal performance state. I am a huge fan of the work of a Norwegian sports psychologist called Yuri Hanin, who back in the 1970s, when he was working with Russian Olympic divers, noticed that the quality of their dives were heavily mediated by the emotional state they were in and the levels of anxiety that they were experiencing. So we might use the term ideal performance state. He used the wonderfully titled individual zone of optimal functioning, the eyes off model. And I tend to use the term optimal mental state. However, I have another term for it, which is game face. Game face. And I wrote about game face in Soccer Tough too. And I don't know if this sounds like a pompous thing to say or a wrong thing to say, but I suppose if you Google my name, it often aligned with it comes game face, because I've done a lot of pods and YouTube stuff around game face. I'm passionate about game face. And to give you a working example here, again, you've used the term ideal performance state, individual zone of optimal functioning. It's your optimal mental state. It's the emotional state that you're experiencing and the ideal anxiety level. But I also say it's the personality you want to portray on the pitch. It's a behavioral blueprint. It's the attitude you want to have. It's something that can impact your confidence levels. It's something that can impact your physical functioning. It's something that gives you a better chance to execute your actions to the best of your ability. A better chance. Doesn't guarantee it, gives you a better chance. So that for me is a game face. And to introduce how somebody creates a game face, I'll give you a working example. So one of my clients plays for a very big club in England, played in the Champions League final a few seasons ago, and his game face was, because we still work together today, is relentless and dominant, relentless and dominant, relentless and dominant. And so this very much drove this player's narrative going into the Champions League final. It wasn't, I want to go there and I want to win, I want to be player of the game. Very, very similar sort of relationship to match script here, in as much as very much taking over the narrative going into the game. The narrative going into the game was, I'm going to be relentless and dominant. I'm going to be relentless and dominant non-stop. Nothing and no one takes me away from relentless and dominant. I'm going to get up and down the pitch relentless and dominant. If I miss a chance to score, I'm going to stay relentless and dominant. If we go a goal down, relentless and dominant. If my cross goes into Roside, relentless and dominant. If we go a goal up, I'm going to stay relentless and dominant. Every action, every motion, every movement, nothing and no one takes me away from relentless and dominant. Can you see how that kind of narrative really does positively influence that player's emotional state, levels of anxiety, and then out there on the field, under the gun, gives him a better opportunity to be able to manage his anxiety and experiences of emotion out there and to deal with distractions. So that's what it is. Now, I help players to create a game face by helping them tap into their memory and imagination. There's more stuff, but I'll prompt people to read the books and to go online and to look me up to get some more stuff here. But memory and imagination is a big part of this. Memory and imagination, memory being, think about you at your best. Tell me about your best game. So try to remember your best game. Try to remember you at your best. What did that look like? What did that feel like? What did others see? What did others experience when you were playing at your best? Tell me about that. Tell me about that. So I'm trying to draw out of the person next to me, them at their best. I'm trying to draw that out. And I can also try to tap into their imagination, their dream game, not a game that's happened, but a dream one, an imagined one. That's what we can do as human beings. We can imagine ourselves into somebody else's shoes or into a game we've never played before. What does a 10 out of 10 performance look like? An 11 out of 10 performance? Tell me about that. Just playing with ideas here. And really the long and short of it is I'm part of the game face. Again, I'll draw people to go online and check out more of my work. Part of it is to have those action-based words. I'm trying to elicit action-based words. Action-based words are important because we can act them out. We can enact them. We can be them and do them and act them. Be them, do them, and act them. We can execute every action in the style of our action-based words, hence relentless and dominant. So if a player says to me, "Oh, creative," well, you can't really be, do, and act creatively, or creative. So it's very much alert, alive, lively, sharp, relaxed, calm, focused, energized, all those kind of words. And then it's about embodying those words, enacting those words. So part of the game phase, I'm going to emphasize part of the game phase is a couple of action-based words that you can embody and enact under pressure.
I love that. Love that a lot. I think that's, man, so powerful to have your athletes create. And then again, something that we should probably be creating as coaches. What's our game face going to be?
Yes.
Coach
face.
Coach face. What are these words that we're going to embody and enact that can help our team be at their best and us be at our best? I have a quick story that I want to share with you because I think you'll enjoy it, and you triggered it in my mind when you talked about the power of memory. So coach 9th grade basketball, 14, 15-year-old boys. And last season, we're playing a team that we should be beating. We're more skilled, more talented. It's a game we all felt we should be winning. And third quarter ends, I think we're down 11 points. And these are fast basketball games. They're 6-minute quarters that they go really quick. And 11 points, that's a big deficit in a 6-minute quarter basketball game. Everybody's frustrated. Head coach is frustrated. I'm the assistant coach. Head coach is frustrated. Players are frustrated. We are not in our ideal performance state.
Okay.
We score a bucket right at the end of the third quarter. So there's a little bit of momentum, a little bit of positive energy. The head coach is really frustrated. I recognize, hey, coach, can I talk to him here? He goes, yeah, I can't even do it. They come over, and I just said, guys, I know we're all frustrated here. Like, everybody take a breath. We can't control what just happened, but I want you to think about this. Let's think about the times this season when we've been at our best. And I think I referenced maybe a game or two. I was like, we were doing X, Y, and Z in those games.
Yep.
I want you to think about that for a minute. I said, we're down 11. I don't know that we can win this game. I don't know. But I do know that if we go out there and we play like we're capable of, like we did in those games that we just thought about, we have a chance. We end up winning the game by 6 points.
Yeah.
It was like 17-6 in the fourth quarter. It was crazy. It was the best 6 minutes they'd played all season. And obviously, and I'm not taking credit for that by any means, but that was a moment for me after where I realized, oh, wow. And there was a ton of power in two things. One, remembering, hey, just for a second, think about us at our best. And then two, being emotionally constant in the moment where everyone is feeling a lot of frustrating emotions.
Yep.
And it was just kind of this light bulb moment for me of like, oh, wow. What I think is maybe a more typical coaching response is to rip into them, right? To light them up. What are we doing?
Yep.
We should be winning this game.
Yep.
But man, there was so much power in just remembering, who are we at our best? What do we do?
I love that, Luke, and great coaching, mate, great coaching. And let me articulate that from a psychological perspective as a psychologist. Listening to what you said there, I'm thinking of solution-focused brief therapy and appreciative inquiry, two important psychological frameworks used across mental health and predominantly across organization psychology industry. And so solution-focused brief therapy was devised by Insoo Kim Berg and Steve DeShazer, two clinical psychologists back in I think I'm going to say 1980s. I might be incorrect about that, but around about that time. And what they noticed as clinical psychologists was that they weren't getting much. They weren't being very successful with what they were doing. Again, I might be doing a disservice there, but let's just go with that notion, that broad brush statement. But what they found in their practice was that people who were depressed aren't always depressed. There are windows of times when they're not depressed. People who might be considered alcoholics or having an alcohol problem don't always crave a drink. And they decided to try to create a linguistic framework that exploited these moments. It's broader than this, but very much centered around focusing on the time that the problem isn't there and building on that. And so one of the techniques or philosophies within this approach, solution-focused brief therapy, is to explore resources of the past, resources that you can use. And in many respects, that's where I draw upon memory and the stuff that you're talking about there. You're helping players, rather than shouting at players and telling them that they're doing rubbish and even giving them instructions. Actually, what you're doing there is you're helping them draw on the resources of their past when they've played really, really well. So you're being a solution-focused therapist in that moment. Therapist isn't a great term for it, but a solution-focused coach is probably a better term here. The other one is appreciative inquiry, and that's, again, used a lot in organizations where the narrative has become really quite maladaptive and unhelpful and negative. And as the name suggests, an appreciative inquiry, to appreciate, to inquire, to appreciate what we, what's gone, what our strengths are, what's good, what works, and so that's something that you can do, and I think that sounds like that's what you did.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. It's good to know some of the frameworks behind it. Because it was, for me, it was like, well, I just kind of did it. Felt like it was what needed to be done, and kind of a light bulb moment for me as a coach. So it's fun. And I think that, like you talked about there, it's so important for us as the coach, the leader of this environment, to be solution focused, and to spend less time dwelling on the mistakes of the past and more time talking about what we can really do now and control. But that's hard. It can be really hard sometimes. And it's not to say that we can't use reflect and, hey, this is what happened in the past, and that should maybe inform what we do in the present.
Yeah.
But it's got to be that connection to the past can inform how we actually move forward into this present moment.
Absolutely. And I just want to say here, I'm laughing right now because I'm here talking to lots of people about injecting biopsychosocial lens into coaching and helping people try to understand that biopsychosocial is always happening and underpins technical, tactical, physical. But I just the wonderful thing about doing podcasts at the convention is obviously we're in, people listening in can't see this, but we're in this lounge area and people are just walking through. And in that moment, just as I was answering your question, you saw somebody came up and stuck a camera just below me, and it completely put me off. I was completely distracted. And that's why when I was trying to explain appreciative inquiry, I was just, the biopsychosocial moment was somebody socially had come up, completely distracted my psychology, my attention. I'd lost my train of thought. So sorry.
No, you're great. You're right. It's always happening.
It's always happening.
And I'll move those signs so they don't do that to my next guest, because it was distracting.
It was really disconcerting. Yeah. I thought she was going to try and take a picture or something. Then
there's a QR code on there.
There's a QR code. I was wondering what was going on.
No worries. That's funny. That's the first time it's happened, actually, during an interview. Well, Dan,
shows how mentally inflexible I am, and I don't practice what I preach.
I don't think you're alone in that. Dan, I have 3 rapid fire questions for you.
Go for it.
That I would love to know your responses to in light of your work as a sports psychologist, coaching athletes on the psychological side of the game, and coaching coaches too there as well. The first one is this: the most fun part of coaching is
complexity.
You say more about that?
Yeah, sorry. So you don't just want one answer. So I would say, no. Let me think about that. It's a good question. The most fun part of coaching. No, let me go off in a different direction. Actually, helping people think outside of their comfort zone, their territory, explore new things, play with ideas, and maybe subsequently shift for the better.
Yeah, that's really good. I get what you're going with there as far as the complexity. Here's the next one. I wish I would have known blank before my first coaching experience. That's the response of most guests.
Everything that I know now, and I'll probably say in 10 years, double what I know now. I wish that it's more a people or person endeavor than a technical endeavor, although it's still a technical endeavor.
Yeah, both essential. Yeah, I like that you highlighted that. And here's the last one. I know I'm successful as a coach when
Principally, players are engaging. And learning. Principally engaging and learning.
I love it. Well, Dan, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time. Before we wrap it up, just share with people where they can connect with you and learn more about your work.
So firstly, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Amidst my haze of exhaustion and flying halfway across the world. Jet lag is the term I'm looking for. I'm so jet lagged, I can't think of the term jet lag. So no, thank you so much, Luke, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. It's been a real privilege, and your questions have been fantastic. So thank you very much. You can check me out at danabrahams.com. I am a prolific tweeter. I have 3 Twitter accounts, but the main one would be at DanAbrahams77, giving away my age there. Instagram at Dan Abrahams Sports, Facebook at Dan Abrahams Soccer. I have a podcast of my own, if you don't mind me saying that, and that's the Psych Show.
And it's really good.
Oh, thank you. Only because I have good guests. My average presenting skills are covered by the genius of the guests. And I think that's it. So everything is, if you just Google my name, you'll find me.
I love it. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Luke.
Coaches, thanks for listening to this episode, and a huge thanks to Dan for joining me. As always, if you enjoyed the episode and want to grab a copy of the podcast notes, which, like I mentioned, are a special edition this week, go to cuttingedgecoach.com/podcast, or just click the link in the show details. I've got 2 main takeaways from this episode. Number 1, I love what Dan shared about a coach as an expert guide. And I really appreciated the distinction he made. Being an expert guide does not mean we don't use our expertise. We will often need to. And at the same time, we recognize that the athletes we coach are capable of more independence and autonomy than we tend to give them. Number 2, find your game face and help your athletes find theirs. Dan called the game face a behavioral blueprint and attitude you want to have in your play. I think we as coaches could benefit greatly from taking the time to consider what we want our game face to be, then creating an opportunity for our players to do the same. And like we talked about, make those words positive action words that are in our control. And then it becomes a powerful thing that 1, we can remind ourselves of, and 2, we can remind our players of. And hey, don't forget to sign up for the first annual summer coaching series. 10 weekly presentations plus 2 bonus sessions from coaches and experts filled with practical ideas that you can apply in your coaching. The early bird price runs through May 9th, so sign up before it expires. You can learn more or sign up at summercoachingseries.com. Thanks for listening to the podcast.